Well, the first phase of this new ceasefire deal has seen emotional reunions for Palestinian prisoners set free and, of course, 3 of the 33 Israeli hostages due to be released being reunited with their families for the first time since the deadly attack on the 7th of October.
Well, Adam Marnit's cousin, Sahi, is one of the 33 hostages named on a list of those set to be released after he was kidnapped from Kibbutz Nahal Oz, near Israel's border with Gaza, on October the 7th. Sahi's 18-year-old daughter was murdered by a Hamas gunman on that day. Adam, Sahi's on the list, but you are worried what state he might be, even if he's still alive. When was the last time you had proof of life?
The last time we had any proof of life was when he appeared in a Hamas video. Hamas did this a lot with a lot of the hostages.
This is a year ago.
A year ago.
January last year.
They would parade the hostages on film and they would force them to say things in Hebrew, usually condemning Israel. And then they would sometimes treat it like a game show where they would have like a question. They'd say, are they alive or are they dead? And they would leave the question unanswered with their ubiquitous inverted red triangle at the end. And we just wouldn't know. And in this case, they actually claimed that all of the hostages in the video, including Tzachi, were dead. However, they've not shown the bodies, and they've not been shy about doing that in their propaganda films.
So there's reason to hope.
So we've been holding on to the hope that that was just bluff. And
what sort of condition was he in the video?
So he was pale, gaunt, bleary-eyed, unkempt, but alive.
He'd been held hostage for about 3 months at that point.
Yeah.
And since then, just an echoing silence.
Just, yeah, a complete no. We have no idea. He's never been visited by the Red Cross. He's never had a UN diplomat or a UK diplomat visit him. We have no proof of life. And so it's been agonizing because even now with the deal, we still don't know if...
but he's on the list.
He is on the list, but, you know, they're telling us that some members of the people on that list are dead.
So it could be...
It could be my cousin, it could be somebody else.
So they could be releasing a body rather than a live person.
They could be. There's the Bibas family, for example. The youngest hostage is a 2-year-old child who was taken at 9 months old and has just marked his 2nd birthday last Saturday. And we don't know if he's alive or dead, and his brother, Ariel, who's 5. So it's very worrying. It's a very distressing time for all the families. And it's part of Hamas's game is that they like to torment us this way, where we don't have, even now, after the deal has been agreed, there's so many details that are, escape us. The devil's in the details, and the devil's taunting us right now.
So Emily Damari was released. The IDF are going to debrief, of course, all of the hostages. Talk to them.
Yeah.
So there must be, within you and your family, some kind of curiosity about what Emily might know about your cousin.
Emily, Romy and Dawn, may have information, may have intelligence. They may have seen Tzachi. We've had that happen before with the released hostages from November, where they had seen Tzachi alive, and that was really comforting to know. So it would be any intelligence that they have will be very helpful.
What happened on the day, precisely, to your cousin and, of course, to his poor daughter?
It was really... it was 6:29 a.m. It was rocket sirens were blaring. Unfortunately, people that live in that area, it's a very normal occurrence to have rocket sirens. The children actually sleep in a rocket shelter because you only have about 15 seconds to get to safety. And so they were in the rocket shelter quite quickly, and they just assumed it was a normal occurrence, but they could quickly hear that it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rockets. And then very soon after that, gunfire, and the WhatsApp group for the community, a small kibbutz of 400 people, they were alerting people to intrusion. Because they're in a rocket shelter, it's not designed for intrusion. They're not like reinforced doors with locks. And so my cousin Tzachi was bodily holding the door shut. And he had 3 of his 4 children with him and his wife. His 4th was in Tel Aviv at the time. His eldest daughter, Mayan, who was 18 years old, she had just celebrated her 18th birthday only a few days earlier. The balloons from her birthday party were still up in the house. She, perhaps feeling a sense of responsibility in her young adulthood, went and helped her father to protect the family, to barricade the door shut. Meanwhile, the terrorists had been going around house to house. They had taken a young boy named Tomer, 17-year-old, at gunpoint and forced him to say in Hebrew to lure the families out from hiding. My family heard Tomer's voice, but they knew that he was saying it under duress and they didn't come out. And eventually the terrorists got frustrated and they shot through the door and they shot Mayan in the head. They broke through the door and you could see Tzachi desperately trying to resuscitate his daughter. He had to watch his daughter die in his arms. As they did that, they pulled the rest of the family out into the sitting room and they forced Gali, Mayan's mother, to unlock her phone so that they can live stream the family's horror to her Facebook page. And that's how a lot of my family found out what was happening.
I see.
It also became one of the earlier clips from the whole massacre, which went on to the internet. And a lot of people know my family from the scene where the youngest boy, Shachar, was 9 years old. He was crying uncontrollably because he'd just seen his eldest sister murdered in front of his eyes. And the terrorists are telling him to shush. And he can't. And his older sister, Yael, who's 11 at the time, talks to the terrorist in English and says, "You killed his sister." And the terrorist responds back, "She's with your God now." Mm-hmm. Eventually, they did this for hours. Eventually, they took Tzachi with the blood of his firstborn still on him, and they took our neighbor, Omri Miran, who has 2 small children, Roni and Alma. They kept together in the same sitting room, and they frog marched them to Gaza. And that was the last time we saw them in person.
How, obviously you know your cousin very well. If he is still alive, how do you think he's withstood the last year and a bit?
He loves his family, and he knows that he has to stay alive for his children who desperately miss him and want him to return. His wife told him not to be a hero, not to try to fight and just, survive, to be strong. Like in the words of Rachel Goldberg-Polin, whose son was eventually found dead and executed by Hamas, but the hope was there that he would be alive. She said to her son every day, "Be strong, survive, I love you." And that's the message I have to my cousin, and that's the message I have to all the hostages.
Well,
you're reunited with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, thank you so much for being with us this morning. It just has been horror upon horror upon horror, hasn't it, in the past year or so. If you're affected by these issues, you can find advice and support itv.com/helplines.
Good luck. Thank you for being here.
Just before you go, Adam, to what extent do you credit Donald Trump? Because we're talking about his inauguration today. To what extent was he and what he said a few days ago, his envoy going, responsible?
I think it made a big difference, honestly. I mean, I think there was 2 aspects to it. One is that the Biden administration is looking to have a legacy. So I think that they were also very keen to secure a deal before his departure. Mm-hmm. And I think Trump was very much interested in ramping up the rhetoric and laying down an ultimatum, which I think really, actually, both administrations working in tandem actually has really shifted things.
Interesting. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.